Let's bring in Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, presidential historian, and editor-in-chief of Sabato's Crystal Ball. Good to see you, my friend. So the Biden campaign made the rounds on the Sunday talk shows, and one of the clear strategies going into this debate is to let Trump be Trump. So if that's the goal, will the new rules really benefit President Biden?
Well, I don't know who's setting the rules for him, but Trump is going to be Trump regardless whether somebody tells him to be Trump or not. And he can have one volume. He only has one volume on speech, and that's often quite loud and quite rude. So you can expect some of that even with the mics turned off. I'm going to be interesting to see how they arrange this acoustically, because even with your mic turned off, if you're loud enough, I suspect it will be picked up by the other candidate's microphone, but maybe they've done something to prohibit that. I think John Meacham was right. That's the origin of these new rules. At least most of it is Donald Trump and how he treated the debate stage in both 2016 and 2020. I'll personally believe the debate stage has been childproof after the debate. If it's been reasonably civil, it doesn't mean they can't disagree. I'm talking about interruptions and the kind of rudeness that can turn people off when people are already turned off almost completely to politics.
Yeah. Let's take a look together at this headline from the New York Times. For Biden and Trump, a debate rematch with even greater risks and rewards. So, Larry, what are the risks and what are the rewards?
Well, for Joe Biden, he has to show what his staff insists is there anyway, which is he's still vigorous and his mind is sharp. He's hurt often by the TV pictures of his body, which is a bit older, and I sympathize with him. Your knees hurt and your back hurts, and sometimes you shuffle a little bit, but that doesn't mean your mind doesn't work well. Let people see the Joe Biden they saw at the State of the Union address, or let people see the Joe Biden they saw in that incredible display with 2 European trips in the same week, dozens of events and speeches and all kinds of things. I wonder how many of us could have gone through that and not been completely exhausted. But they need to show that. That's the reward. The risk is there, but the reward is substantial. For Donald Trump, I suppose he could decide to be civil, and that might change the edges of the image that he has with the relatively small number of independents and swing voters who will determine the election. We'll all believe it when we see it, but it will be interesting to understand whether his staff and maybe family have told him that's the way to go, and if he pays any attention to them, even if they have.
Yeah, good point. Okay, it's time to break out your very famous crystal ball because there are several states seemingly up for grabs. Let's start with where you live, Virginia, which has voted blue in the last several elections, but Republicans believe they can swing it back. So what's your sense of a state that you may know better than anyone?
Biden is still ahead. He's nowhere near the 10-point victory that he had in 2020. And I think he's more around the 5 points that Hillary Clinton had in 2016 in Virginia. But it's June. You know, a lot of things are going to change. We've got the first debate coming up and then Trump's sentencing. And we'll see what the details of that are. And then the Republican convention, and then the Democratic convention, and then the second debate on September 10th, and all the things that we don't know are going to happen that are on the calendar. So it's a little early to be saying that any state is lower on the spectrum or higher on the spectrum than it was in 2020 for Joe Biden or for Donald Trump. But I think Virginia is very likely to go for Biden. Frankly, if it doesn't, or even if it's 2 or 3 points in Biden's direction, it suggests that Trump is probably winning the Electoral College handily.
Wow. Okay, let's get in some details about North Carolina, because it is a Republican stronghold. It's come very close to turning blue, though. Could the Democratic governor help push that state to the left?
Absolutely. And the Republicans have an extraordinarily weak candidate for governor, the current lieutenant governor, who makes Donald Trump look tame in the same things that he says about controversial issues. That could also hurt Republicans. You know, with North Carolina, I would put it this way. Right now we're all saying, oh, it's going to be so close. It's going to be so close. It's close right now. If the election were held now, it'd be close. No one has any clue what it will be like in November after all of these things happen. Let's suppose that one candidate or the other manages to open up just a little daylight, 2 or 3 points. Well, if it's Biden, North Carolina could turn. North Carolina is often a very close state. If it is in Trump's direction, if the closeness yields a 2 or 3 point lead for him, then Minnesota becomes reasonable for him, believe it or not. It's not the old Minnesota. It's not your grandfather's Minnesota.
Let's dig into Georgia with this angle, because it could be this year's biggest wild card. Of course, it unexpectedly helped Biden win in 2020. It is still, though, a deeply red state. The Biden campaign, Larry, is planning more than 200 events across Georgia this week. But beyond that, what do they need to do to keep Georgia in November?
They need to excite Democratic voters there, and particularly minority voters. Everybody knows right now the minority voters, both the blacks and Latinos, are not as excited as Democrats would want them to be, or anywhere close to as excited as they were in 2020. That simply has to change. Biden won too many key states, swing states, with very small pluralities. But again, months to go, opportunities to do that, and they clearly understand what needs to be done, and they do have the resources to do it. Yes, Trump has exceeded his Biden's totals now in fundraising, but I suspect, I don't know this for sure, we haven't seen the full numbers, but I suspect a lot of it's going to his legal fees, which can only grow exponentially in the next few months.
Give me a sense of the Veep pick, the 3 names being bantered about now. We have Governor Doug Burgum, we have the Senators J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Who helps Trump the most?
Probably Rubio would, simply because he would have some appeal to Latinos, and already they're weakening in terms of their Democratic ties. So he might add 2 or 3 percentage points. Note that all 3 of them are from deeply red states. You know, in the old days, candidates tried to pick a candidate from a big state that was competitive or might even lean to the opposition. Everybody always uses the example of Lyndon Johnson, but there are plenty of other examples too. Well, that's gone. In this particular case, given the presidential nominee, Donald Trump, maybe they would do best by taking an advanced course in groveling. That might well suit them best, and they're all taking back. They're all eating without salt, pepper, and Tabasco their prior words of criticism for Donald Trump. Well, whichever one of them is picked, if Trump actually gets elected, that will be their future for 4 years. Hope they enjoy it.
Well, it looks like some of them have certainly been taking that class already. Thank you, my friend. Those who take your classes are very lucky. Thank you, Larry.